Bien, buenas tardes. A nombre del Centro Cultural Peruano-Americano, les damos la bienvenida a esta charla. Esta charla informativa sobre la Universidad de Idaho tiene como finalidad brindar a los estudiantes y al público interesado, ustedes, información detallada sobre las oportunidades de realizar estudios superiores en esta reconocida universidad pública de Estados Unidos. Durante la sesión se presentarán las principales características académicas de la institución, su propuesta educativa, las áreas de estudio más destacadas y los beneficios que ofrece para estudiantes internacionales. Asimismo, se abordarán temas clave como el proceso de admisión, of admission, also in academic integration and the adaptation to university life. So let's welcome him with a round of applause.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time to listen to me tonight. Yeah, as he mentioned, my job is as the Assistant Director of International Admissions at the University of Idaho. So it's my job to travel around the world to share about our university with prospective students who are thinking about studying in the U.S., just to show a little bit of what we have to offer as a university. And then it's also my job to help you out in the process. If you decide to apply or you have other questions, if there's anything that comes up, I'm here to help. And so I'm very glad to do that. I've been in this position for about 3 years, and I actually attended the University of Idaho myself. I studied conservation biology, and I'm actually in a master's program now in leadership and organization development. So I've been through the whole process of deciding what university to go to and things like that, and I did choose the University of Idaho because I thought it had a lot to offer. So, but again, I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. And with that, we'll go ahead and, I guess I should start from the beginning though. Okay, perfect. So how many of you guys are familiar with Idaho or knew where it was at before I came here tonight? Not too many? All right, cool. So we're not one of the maybe famous states in the U.S. like California or New York or Texas, right? But I think we're kind of a hidden secret and a really beautiful location to live in. There's a lot of good things, I think, about being in Moscow, Idaho, so not to be confused with Moscow, Russia. I've had some students who have emailed me and they're like, am I going to the right country? But we just like to steal the names of other cities. So we're in sort of the Pacific Northwest of the U.S., and it's a really beautiful area. Again, there's a lot of mountains, rivers, lakes, a lot of famous people actually have their houses a little bit north of us in a town called Coeur d'Alene. My friend worked at a golf course up there, and she got to meet Shaq. She was driving his golf cart around. But it's a place where a lot of the famous people in the U.S. go to kind of get away from the craziness of places like California. So again, a really beautiful location. We're pretty close to Seattle, only about an hour flight there, about an hour flight to Portland as well, or about 2 hours to get anywhere in California. And what I like about that is we have a lot of access to all of the big companies that are located along the West Coast. You know, Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, places like that are headquartered in Seattle. There's a lot of the big tech companies that are headquartered in Southern California. And our students are getting their education in Idaho and then doing internships or going on to work for a lot of those big global companies. And I think that remains one of the big benefits of studying in the U.S. is to have access to companies like that, to be able to do internships for them or work on projects or get involved in some way with those big global companies. The benefit of being in Idaho is that it costs much, much less usually at least half, like less than half as much to live in Idaho as it does to live in San Francisco or Seattle or one of those places. So it's a good way to save money and get a great education. But again, you still have access to kind of the big companies along the West Coast. Moscow itself as a city is pretty small. It's a college town, very much based around the university. But what I like about it being a small town is a couple things. One, it's very safe. So when I go to the grocery store, I don't lock my car when I go into the store. There's no neighborhoods I have to avoid. My wife takes our dogs on walk around the neighborhood at night and feels totally fine. And everybody's super friendly there as well. So, for example, I had a Nepali student who was at the grocery store one time, and he was buying something on the shelves, and he got to talking with a lady from the community who was there. And they decided that item was very expensive at that store and they needed to go to another store. So she actually offered to give him a ride to another store, and she did, and they ended up becoming really, really good friends. He goes over to their house now for holidays. He goes over to their house just to share a meal and hang out with their family. They've basically become his American family. And so I think that is an example of how people in the community are very friendly towards international students and students in general. A little bit about our campus specifically. How many of you have heard of Central Park in New York City? Central Park? Okay. It's a really big, beautiful park right in the heart of New York City, and it's fairly famous, but the same people who designed Central Park in New York City designed our campus. So there's a lot of really beautiful areas where you can go study. It's a mix of kind of brick buildings like you think of when you think of a university, but we also have really advanced buildings. Like there's one where you can move the walls around to kind of make the classrooms suit your needs. So I love our campus, and I think it's a really beautiful and nice place to be. So just a little more about the university itself. We were founded in 1889, so a pretty long legacy of providing education. We're actually 1 year older than the state of Idaho, which is interesting. And there's a lot of numbers and rankings and stuff on here, but I think just a couple things that I'll point out. One is we're a public research university. So because we're a public research university, we want to provide education to as many students as possible. That means an easy application process, and it also means a lot of different degree programs. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but no matter what you want to study, there's probably something that's a good fit for you. And then the other thing I'll point out is the ranking in the bottom in the middle says #1 best value public university in the West. And that's a big, long sentence, but what it means is you get a great education for a great price. So you don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a good education that is going to get you jobs at some of the places that I mentioned earlier or wherever you want to go. But we do have nationally ranked programs, globally ranked programs in business, computer science, architecture. There's a whole bunch of different programs that are ranked as well. So, all right. So one of the most common questions that I get when I'm traveling abroad and talking to students is, what is life going to be like when I get to the university, or just what is it like to be on campus? What are some things to do? Where's the good food to eat? You know, things like that. And so there's a few things I want to highlight here. #1 is that we're a medium-sized university, so about 12,000 students. What I like about that is it's really easy to connect with your professors. Usually you know, at bigger universities, maybe you have grad students who are in between, or you're in really big classes where it's like several hundred people, and it's harder to connect with your professors. At our university, because we're medium-sized, you have a lot of access to talk to them, which is good because you want to help them out with research, with all the cool things that they're doing, and they can help you out as well. We have about 820 international students from 80 different countries, including Peru. And actually, Peru is our #1 growing population among international students at the university. So we actually do have a few students here from Arequipa as well. So that's pretty exciting. And one of the reasons that I'm here today to just follow up and share a little bit more information. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, why are so many Peruvian students coming to the university? And I think maybe it's a couple things. One is, does anybody know what Idaho is famous for? Potatoes. I learned yesterday that Peru is also very famous for potatoes. I was told yesterday that you guys have like 3,000 or 5,000 different, 4,000 varieties of potatoes. Which is incredible to me. But we actually really do have some students who are doing master's programs and PhD programs in agriculture and learning about plant science and things like that. We do have very good agriculture programs. But I think it's also just the growing community that we have of students from this region, not just Peru, but also Ecuador, Central America. And I think there's a lot of... like it feels like a family, and I love that. So, but along those lines, there's a lot of support systems available too when you come to the university. So these are just a few things. We have conversational English groups. The community puts on a monthly dinner for international students. We have a friendship families program available as well, where you can go to a house, to a family's house in the community, and you can share a meal with them or celebrate holidays with them as well. And I think that's good because you want that balance of, you know, a little taste of home. You want some Peruvian food. The food is excellent here. But you also want to connect with Americans, right? You want to have that experience when you're studying abroad. And so I think there's a very good balance of that at our university. Almost half of the student government seats at our university are also held by international students. And I think that's cool. Even though international students make up about 7 to 10% of the population, half of the government seats are held by international students, which is cool because that means there's a lot of programs available. There's a lot of fun things that you can do that are happening because of that. We also have a peer mentorship program where we can pair you one-on-one with another student from Peru or a student who's in the same degree program that you're interested in. So all that to say, we have a lot of support that we provide, and there's a lot of community at our university, which I think is important, you know. The education part is very important, but community is important as well. There's also about 250 different clubs on our campus, and no matter where you study, whether it's a university here or abroad, I really encourage you to get involved with clubs because they're a great way to meet other people who are interested in the same thing as you. There's 3 different types of clubs. One is academic, so we have like the Women's Society of Engineers, and that's going to help you professionally and in your studies. We also have athletics clubs, so like if you enjoy playing soccer or basketball or volleyball or anything like that, we do have athletics clubs available. And then the third one is hobby-based clubs. So like we have a Spanish speakers club, we have the Cozy Cooks Club, where students just get together and eat food together. We have a Taylor Swift fan club as well. So if you're any Taylor Swift fans. And I know that's a little bit of a specific example, but I say it because no matter what you're interested in, there's probably other students who are interested in the same things as you, and clubs are a fantastic way to meet others who are interested in those things as well. So I have a couple pictures on this slide to tell you a little more about what campus life is like. So in the middle, the bottom picture is in our commons area where you can grab food. There's like 5 or 6 restaurants that are there. A lot of people go through to get food between classes. But we also have this little army of robots that's in the top on the middle. And they'll actually deliver food right to your classroom or deliver it to your dorms if you're living on campus. And they even play you a song when you open the little hatch to grab your food out. So if you love Taylor Swift, you can have them play your favorite Taylor Swift song. The pictures on the right are pictures of what your classroom might look like. So you might have a traditional classroom like on the top right there. But I studied conservation biology, and as I mentioned earlier, we have a big focus on hands-on learning or getting real-world experience. So in conservation biology, my classroom looked a lot like the middle picture. I was out in the forest, I was catching little animals, and I was out on boats measuring water quality. I was very much outside in the, doing what I would do in an actual job a lot of the time. And then if you're in engineering, maybe your classroom will look like that bottom picture a little bit more, where you're in labs or things like that. So that's a little bit about what student life is like. All right, so academics. It's not all about social life, right? You have to study as well when you're going to a university. So what can you study? Well, again, I mentioned that we have about 250 different programs available. So there's a lot here. Of course, like I mentioned, we're very good at agriculture. We have things like psychology, education, natural resources, what I studied. We have performing arts, fine arts. So like I said, no matter what you want to study, probably something that's a good fit for you. Probably our top 3 programs that international students are coming to our university for are architecture, engineering, and business. And I think it's because all of these have a really big hands-on learning component. So in architecture, we actually have a design and build program, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You design something, and then you actually build it. So this girl in the photo is from Oman, and she's sitting in a chair that she designed, and then she built it. We also have students who have designed seating for a coffee shop in the community, students who have designed housing off campus and actually built it. So a really good way if you're interested in architecture to get experience putting your designs into the real world. Engineering is another great example. In any engineering program, you're required to do a capstone project where an industry partner, like a big company, will come to us with a project for you to work on in your senior year, and you work together in a team, and then you showcase it at a big poster presentation at the end of the year. And so this student here was working on a team. They were developing a robotic arm for people who had had strokes and were trying to regain mobility and things like that. So some really cool engineering projects going on. And then in business, we have about 8 different focuses that you can do in business. One of my favorites is in finance. You can get a certificate in trading stocks. And to get that certificate, you do exactly that. We give you money, and then you trade it on the stock market. And that's how you learn. The cool thing about that program is if it makes money, that money goes back in to fund scholarships for students in the program. But again, lots available, so don't limit yourself just to engineering or business or architecture. One of the things that I really like about our university as well is that we're ranked R1, which means we're in the top 4% of research universities in the US. Like I mentioned before, we're medium-sized, so it's easy to connect with faculty, but being R1 is also significant because you get to help out the faculty and your professors when they're working on those big research projects. And that's important because you get to build your resume, and then when you graduate, it's easier to get a job. We have between $130 and $140 million in research funding that comes in every year. And 100% of our degree programs have some sort of experiential learning component, so where you're actually doing the things that you would do in a job. I already mentioned the engineering capstone. Another thing that we have in any program, whether you're studying art or psychology or engineering, is a co-op program. And there's not that many universities in the US that do this, so it's fairly unique to us. But this is kind of like an internship, but longer. So you go work for a company, usually for 6 months at a time. You earn money. You can earn $15,000 to $20,000 in that 6-month period. So you're making money, you're getting credit towards your degree, you're building work experience, and you're networking as well. You're getting to know people at those companies. So several of the companies that our students have done these co-ops at have hired our students afterwards to work for them. So anyways, the highlight of this is just we are very focused on hands-on learning and giving you real experience that you can use to build your resume. So what I like to kind of do is take a look at some of the students who have just come to our university. You know, they're excited about getting their education, and then to take a look at where they will go in the future. So this was our incoming class of August 2025, so not too long ago, about 200 students. Again, from, I think we had about 70 countries who started with us. So, but these students are going to go on to get their degree, and then they'll go work at, you know, some of these companies that I mentioned that are located along the West Coast or other places around the world, really. The student in the middle on the bottom is from Nepal, and he studied biological engineering, and he went on to do a master's program in biological engineering at MIT. The student in the upper right is from Turkey, and he's standing with his dad, who flew in for his graduation, but they're standing in front of a house that he designed in our architecture program, and then actually got to build that house. And there's students living in there now. And then the student in the bottom right is from Bangladesh, and she graduated in our education program, and she went on to become a dean at a college in Arizona. So just some really cool opportunities, you know, as students go through the getting their education and then going on to get great jobs as well. I was having a conversation in the taxi a little earlier too, and there's a notable alumni who I always forget to mention, but have you guys heard of SpaceX? Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of Elon Musk, right? Well, Elon Musk had a partner, a group of people who he started SpaceX with. One of those guys was Tom Mueller. And Tom Mueller was actually a graduate of our university in engineering. And so really cool that he, you know, that company is a part of the legacy of education that we provide. Okay. Just a couple more things here I want to cover. So this is a very specific program. It's called MESA, or the Microchip Engineering and Security Alliance. And this program is actually available where you can study at our branch campus in Hiroshima, Japan for 2 years. And then you come to Idaho for 2 years. So it's only for electrical engineering right now. But the reason we wanted to open a branch campus for this in Hiroshima is just because that region is a big hub for microchip engineering. So you've got Taiwan Semiconductor, companies in Japan, Korea as well. So that gives you an opportunity to get some experience with those companies and connect with them in that region. The program's actually also cheaper than our traditional undergraduate programs, so it gives you a chance to save some money. But the program is fully in English. It's fully taught by University of Idaho professors, and the degree you get at the end is a University of Idaho degree. So I figured I'd mention that in case anybody's interested in electrical engineering. Okay, so cost. Cost is always a big factor when you're deciding where you can study, right? And I said we were ranked best value public university in the West earlier. So all of these numbers are going to be per year. So you can see non-resident tuition there in the column on the left. Our full tuition with no scholarships is about $29,000 per year. But if you have about an 80% average on your grades here in Peru, we give you a scholarship for just under $16,000. There's no extra application. All we need are your grades, and you automatically apply for it. So with that invitation to Idaho scholarship, it brings the tuition down to about $13,000 US per year, or the column on the right-hand side there. So that's a pretty affordable tuition compared to a lot of the R1 research universities in the US and the education you get. That's the one big institutional scholarship that we provide. We also, when you're admitted, like after you apply and we give you the letter that says, "Congratulations, welcome to the University of Idaho," we'll also give you like an email and an address that you can use to log into a portal called Scholarship Universe. And that's a resource that we've put together that's free to use. And we've taken a whole bunch of outside scholarships and departmental scholarships and put them together, and you can make a profile on there. And you can also apply to those scholarships as well. So there's a couple opportunities for scholarships. We do have a lot of department scholarships available as well too. So like if you're studying computer science, then the Department of Computer Science has scholarships available. But those are usually just for second year or later students. And the reason for that is because students in the US tend to change their mind a lot in their first year when they're attending the university. Like, I want to study psychology. Oh, no, I want to study computer science. Oh, no, I think I'll study something else. And so our departments want to see that if you're in the computer science program, you're going to stay in the computer science program. And so usually they give those scholarships to students who are in their second year and beyond. Another good way to help with the finances in your education is by working on campus. So as international students, you can work 20 hours per week on campus and 40 hours a week during the academic breaks. What's good, again, about us being a research university is that we have a lot of professors and master's students and doctoral students who are doing research. And they can't run all of the tests and go out in the field and collect samples on their own. They need help to do that, right? So usually when you get a little bit of experience in your degree, you can apply for research assistantships with some of those folks. Those jobs pay about $16 to $18 per hour. So they're good at helping with the cost. They're not going to pay for everything, but it can really help cover some of the finances too. Also, at the beginning, I mentioned that Idaho has a pretty low cost of living. Our estimate here is for about $12,000 per year. So that's if you're living in more the like apartment style dorms that are on campus. We do have on-campus residence halls, you know, the typical ones where you have a roommate and then there's like one big shared bathroom in the middle of the floor or something like that. But we also have like apartment style. You can choose different meal plans, things like that. But those cost you on average about $12,000 per year. So you usually live on campus your first year, and then your second year you can move off campus, and it's actually a little bit cheaper than this. I live in a 3-bedroom apartment that's about a 10-minute walk from the campus. So I ride my bike to work every day. And I pay $1,500 per month. So like if me and 2 friends split it, it would be $500 each. And that would be more like $6,000 per year. And then if you add food on top of that, maybe $8,000 or $9,000 per year. So again, this is not a cost possible, and part of that is having an easy application process. So all we need from you are your grades here, and we also need an English proficiency test. So we accept a variety of different things, TOEFL, IELTS, even Duolingo. We can use your SAT scores as well if you get a 550 on the reading writing portion. We actually don't require that you submit SATs. We just need your grades again. But if you have taken it, we can use it for English proficiency, and we can also use it to place you in math and English classes. And then, again, we're looking for a 2.5 GPA for admission, or about a 75% average on your grades. And then for the scholarship, we're looking for about an 80% average on your grades. So, yeah, pretty simple. We don't need essays. We don't need letters of reference. We don't need extra tests or anything like that. Just your grades and the English proficiency test. So that is all the information that I have for you. I would love to open it up to take any questions that you guys have as well. It can be about our university, the University of Idaho. It can be about studying in the U.S. and what the process is like. Again, I'm here to help, and I love doing that. So my contact information is also up here, my email address and my WhatsApp as well. So if you want to reach out either of those ways, you can. And just before I start taking questions, I also have these little contact cards that you can fill out. I'll put a couple down there and a couple over here. So if you want to get more information about some of our programs, or if you want me to follow up later with more information, I'd love to do that. I just need your email and your name and what your interests are. So, but with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions.
Anybody interested? Any question?
So when you're applying, we don't really look at extracurricular activities for admission. But when you're applying for scholarships and things like that, you know, to get extra money, those things are very important. So it's good that you've done them, and it's good that you have that certificate, but we just don't use it for admission. It would be more important for scholarships. Yeah, good question. We do, yeah. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, Idaho is a really important state for natural resources, and so we do actually a lot of mining in Idaho. We do, there's a lot of forest management, developing new renewable energies, things like that. So there's quite a bit of, you know, whatever your interest is within environmental engineering, you can really focus in. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, if you want something about the English, in the previous slide, Jeremy showed what are the minimal scores. You should be familiar with those international tests. You need a TOEFL, you need 70 in TOEFL. It's out of 120. So you don't really need super top high score, very difficult to achieve. That would be maybe for medicine or law, right? They require like very top score. So even if you get those scores there in IELTS 6.0, Duolingo 100, SAT 550. So if you're really thinking about this, you can try online. They have usually sample papers for those exams and check how close you are to that English goal that you would need. I mean, most of you or all of you scored well, but those scores don't really reflect what your international level will be. So taking those free tests will give you an idea of what your actual score is if you would have a chance to be admitted at the university. Besides the the application is what? It's a form, it's an essay,
So it's just a form online that you can fill out, or if you've heard of the Common App, we're also part of that. It's a form that you can use to apply to a bunch of different universities in the U.S. The thing about the Common App is that if another university requires an essay, then you have to submit the essay to do the Common App because you're applying to all of them at once. So if you directly apply on our website and just go to, if you go to our website, the link to apply is everywhere. So you will not have a hard time finding it. But you just fill out a short form that asks where you went to school, what your interests and hobbies are, and a couple things like that. And so it's a really easy form. Yeah. Yeah, so we do help with information about the process and the next steps that you need to take. We don't give like legal advice on like when you go to your visa interview, say this. In general, I think the best advice in those visa interviews is just to be yourself and be honest and share why this university and everything. But we do provide a lot of information about the process itself, and so like, what do I need to do to take the next step? Yeah.
El programa de Education USA del Cultural, a los alumnos que participan en programas con universidades como esta, te brinda información. No te van a llevar a Lima a que te den la visa. Sin embargo, el hecho de que si tú tienes admission a una universidad, a través del cultural se contacta en la embajada y puedes llevar documentos adicionales que, obviamente, siendo un estudiante, consigues la visa que corresponde y no sería un inconveniente. O sea, imagínate, estás admitido y no te dan la visa, eso no pasa. Pero sí, con Education USA tienes toda la asesoría y el apoyo en complemento a lo que puede hacer la universidad.
Yeah, I traveled a long way to be here, so get all the questions out. All right. Well, I'll hang out for a minute here. If you want to fill out a contact card or ask me a question individually, please do that. But I really want to thank you guys again for spending a little bit of time with me tonight, learning about our university. Yeah, thank you so much.